Let's talk about a number that used to mean you'd made it. $500,000, or pounds or Aussie dollars. 10 years ago, $500,000 bought you the dream. It bought you the 4-bedroom house with the wraparound porch in the suburbs of Atlanta. It bought you a detached family home with a garden in the Midlands. It bought you a solid brick-and-mortar investment in the outskirts of Melbourne. But today, in 2026, that same $500,000 feels like the entry fee to a game that's been rigged against you before you even sat down at the table. We've all seen the listings. You scroll through Zillow or Rightmove or Domain, and you see a house that looks fine. It's not a mansion. It's not even luxury. It's a standard 3-bedroom home that probably needs a roof in 5 years, and the price tag is $500,000. And you think to yourself, who is actually buying this? Because if you're making a good salary, let's say $80,000 or $90,000 a year, you do the math on a mortgage calculator and your heart sinks. Between the 6% interest rates we're seeing now, the skyrocketing property taxes, and the insurance premiums that seem to double every time you blink, that $500,000 home isn't just a house, it's a financial anchor. Yet, these houses are selling. They're selling in days, sometimes with multiple offers. So who are these people? Are they all secret millionaires? Is everyone suddenly making $200K a year? Or is there something else going on beneath the surface that nobody wants to admit? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the $500,000 class of 2026. We're going to look at the cold, hard math of what it actually takes to afford this home in the US, the UK, and Australia. And more importantly, we're going to talk about the invisible subsidies that are creating a massive divide between those who own and those who are being locked out forever. Because the truth about who affords a $500,000 home in 2026 isn't just about income. It's about a fundamental shift in how wealth works in the modern world. And if you don't understand this shift, you're going to spend the next decade chasing a goalpost that's moving faster than you can run. Let's get into the numbers, and I promise I'll keep this simple, but you need to hear this. In the US, if you're looking at a $500,000 home with a 10% down payment, which is $50,000, a massive sum for most people, at a 6% interest rate, your monthly principal and interest is around $2,700 to $3,200. But wait, you've got property taxes, you've got homeowners insurance, which is, let's be honest, becoming a crisis in states like Florida, Texas, and California. You've got PMI because you didn't put 20% down. Your all-in monthly payment is probably hovering around $3,800 to $4,000. To follow the 30% rule, where your housing costs don't exceed 30% of your gross income, you need to be pulling in roughly $150,000 to $160,000 a year. Think about that. To afford what used to be a starter home, you now need to be in the top 10% of earners in the country. Now let's look at the UK. £500,000 in London gets you a 1-bedroom flat if you're lucky. In Manchester or Birmingham, it's a nice family home. But with UK mortgage rates stabilizing around 5% in 2026 and the cost of living still biting, a $500K mortgage requires a household income of at least £120,000. The average UK household income is nowhere near that. And Australia? Don't even get me started. 500,000 Aussie dollars is practically a myth in Sydney or Melbourne. You're looking at the very fringes of the city or a small apartment. With the RBA keeping rates steady but high, the repayment stress is at an all-time high. So, we have a massive gap. The average Joe makes $70K. The starter home requires $150K. This is the affordability gap. And yet, the houses are selling. If the math doesn't add up for the average worker, then who is signing the papers? The first group of people affording these homes aren't necessarily rich in terms of their monthly paycheck. They're what I call equity migrants. These are the people who bought a home in 2015 or 2018 for $250,000. They watched their home value explode during the madness of the early 2020s. They sold that house for $450,000, walked away with $200,000 in cash, and rolled that entire amount into the down payment of a $500,000 home. For them, the mortgage isn't $450,000, it's $300,000. Their monthly payment is manageable because they're not starting from zero. They're playing the game with a massive head start. This is why the housing market feels so broken for first-time buyers. You're not just competing against other people's salaries, you're competing against their past luck. You're competing against the fact that they happen to be born 5 years earlier or bought into the market at the right time. If you're a first-time buyer in 2026, you're looking at that $500,000 price tag and seeing a mountain. The equity migrant looks at it as a lateral move. But there's a darker side to this, because when these people move, they drive up prices in affordable areas. They take their California equity and move to Tennessee. They take their London equity and move to the north. They take their Sydney equity and move to Brisbane.
They can afford the $500,000 home because they brought the money with them. But for the locals in those areas, they're being priced out of their own hometowns by people who are just trying to find a place where $500K still buys something decent. Now, let's talk about the group that nobody likes to talk about at dinner parties, the inheritance class. In 2026, we're in the middle of the great wealth transfer. Trillions of dollars are moving from boomers to millennials and Gen Z. A huge portion of the people buying $500,000 homes today are doing it with a gift from their parents. Maybe it's $50,000 for the down payment. Maybe it's $100,000. Sometimes it's the whole thing. I've seen it happen dozens of times. A young couple, both making decent but not spectacular salaries, somehow closes on a $500,000 property. You wonder how they did it. Did they skip that many avocado toasts? No. They had a parent who refinanced their own home or dipped into their retirement fund to help the kids get a start. This is the invisible subsidy. It creates a facade of affordability. On paper, it looks like the market is healthy because people are buying, but in reality, the market is being propped up by intergenerational wealth. If you don't have access to the bank of mom and dad, you're essentially playing a different sport. You're trying to save $100,000 while paying $2,500 in rent. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom while someone else is being handed a full bucket by their parents. This is why the $500,000 home is the new class divider. It's the line between those who have family wealth and those who are trying to build it from scratch. And in 2026, building it from scratch has never been harder. Then there's the third group, and this is the group I'm most worried about. These are the people who can't actually afford the $500,000 home, but they bought it anyway. They are the house poor. They make $110,000 a year. They scraped together a 3.5% down payment. They ignored the advice about the 30% rule and decided that 50% of their take-home pay going to a mortgage was just the way it is now. They live in a beautiful $500,000 house, but it's empty. They can't afford furniture. They can't afford to go out to dinner. They're one car repair or one medical bill away from total financial collapse. They're gambling. They're gambling that their income will go up, that interest rates will drop so they can refinance, or that the house will be worth $700,000 in 3 years and they can sell it to get out of under the debt. In 2026, this is a dangerous game. We aren't in the era of 2% interest rates anymore. The easy money is gone. If you buy a house you can barely afford today, you are locking yourself into a decade of stress. I see this constantly on social media. People flexing their new home purchase, but they don't show you the credit card debt they're piling up just to buy groceries because the mortgage eats everything else. They afford the $500,000 home by sacrificing everything else: their retirement savings, their emergency fund, their mental health. They have the status symbol, but they don't have the wealth. So, what does this mean for you? If you're looking at the market in 2026 and feeling like you're failing because you can't afford a $500,000 home, I want you to take a deep breath. The standard has changed, but the advice hasn't caught up. The truth is, the people who really afford these homes are either using old equity, using family money, or they're putting themselves in a very precarious financial position. If you don't fall into those first two categories, don't rush into the third. There is no shame in renting and building your liquid wealth instead of real estate wealth. In fact, in 2026, being liquid is a superpower. While everyone else is tied down to a massive mortgage in a house that's depreciating in real terms after inflation and maintenance, you have the flexibility to move, to invest in the market, and to wait for a better opportunity. The $500,000 home isn't the finish line, it's just a number. Don't let the FOMO of 2026 drive you into a financial trap that will take you 20 years to escape. Real wealth isn't about the house you live in, it's about the options you have. It's about being able to walk away from a job you hate because you have a freedom fund. It's about sleeping at night knowing that a 1% change in interest rates won't ruin your life. The world wants you to believe that you need that $500,000 home to be successful, but the smartest people I know are the ones who realize that the most expensive thing you can buy is a life you can't afford. Build your foundation first. The house can wait. Your freedom can't.